Okay, this is a video I meant to post up earlier, but when I re-listened to the audio, it was horrible. I hate my microphone. Like right now, you probably heard something there. That's me just like slightly stroking my beard, and the microphone picks it up. And it was little stuff like that. I had to ditch the audio and redo this whole thing. Uh, if you're probably in your 20s and you're into movies and video games, probably a show that's been incredibly influential on your lives was Mystery Science Theater, one of the best comedy series of all time. The famous show where a guy and two of his robot friends sit down and make fun of bad movies. Fans of the series are fanatics to the show, and I know I'm going to get some heat on this one because the show had two hosts through two different eras, Mike Nelson and Joel, and both were great. And there has been some debate. Who was better? Was Joel better? Was Mike better? And I'm going to try to give my opinions. But before I do, I want to acknowledge one thing, that this is biased. That this isn't scientific, I should say. There's no absolute truth to who's actually better. It's only just my opinion of what I feel like. And two, it's actually very hard to compare the two because they had two different eras. Yeah, there was some overlap, but it's apples and oranges. And in some cases, well, for example, Joel started off the show. He started off on cable television and then was able to get it onto the Comedy Central, which at that time was one of two big cable comedy channels. And when he started the show, he had no budget, literally no budget, putting this stuff together himself. By the time Nelson got transferred to the Sci-Fi Channel, for what they were doing, they had a very decent budget. Also, by that time, Joel had to start off this entire idea from scratch, basically, how to set up the segments, all that stuff. By Nelson's era, they had an experienced staff that was doing that stuff for almost a decade. It was very well polished, so it's extremely hard to compare these two. And if you're going to compare them, it's going to be on their comedic style. Because the two had a slightly different comedic style to one another. Joel, well, I should also point, this is also, I think, partially going to be biased on my part because of where I started watching the show. I started watching the show in the Sci-Fi Channel era, which was clearly, well past when Nelson took over. Because the very first time I was just flipping through channels, I was at that age where your parents would let you stay up late, and if you had just stay up late in your room. And I didn't have, the video games were in the basement, so I couldn't go down and play them at night. But so I could watch TV, so I watched it for no reason, just because I could stay up till like 12 at night. And one day, flipping through, I caught Revenge of the Creature, which I started watching. Well, I noticed the little guys on the bottom, but I started watching because, Revenge of the Creature from Black Lagoon is supposed to be one of the famous shows or horror creatures, and these guys were there making fun of it. And it was just hilarious. And so, looked up what the show was and the little guide that used to come in TV channels. Yeah, we don't see those anymore. It used to be the newspapers would actually have the television schedule. So I was Mystery Science Theater, checked for when next time I was playing, and every time it came on, I would watch it, and it was hilarious. But it was the Sci-Fi. It was, I'm not sure if that was the premiere episode or I just happened to catch a rerun that happened to be the first Sci-Fi Channel show. But either way, I got on the perfect spot to kind of start watching a show midway through, and I like that. But that does bias me because nostalgic-wise, it's always been Nelson. It wasn't until later on that I started watching the stuff from the Comedy Central era, which was Nelson, but also mostly Joel. But I should get into which one of these two I prefer. Again, not saying really which is better, but which I personally prefer, and the reasons why. And it's Mike Nelson. The reason why is I like Nelson. Had more of a kind of that Midwestern sense of humor, even though both Joel and Nelson did. Nelson had more of the kind of pointing out how stupid and ridiculous things were. and it was just much more relatable to me. Uh, Joel, on the other hand, when Joel did his stuff, he purposely and he said this, that he has taken his cue from Silent Running and decided to play a more hippie-like character that just kind of was going with the flow, kind of just went with anything. Yeah, whatever the bad guys were trying to play with, he just roll with it, which is why he participated in the invention exchanges. He also was played the droopy-eyed character. At least I think he was playing it, because he always played his character. It looked like he was always high, and who knows what happened backstage. They were out in the Midwest with basically no oversight from the higher up producers, so the set might have been exciting. But that was a fun character, and no doubt he was a great riffer. Some of the movies he had to take on, but I like Nelson's kind of more of a just attitude of this is silly and stupid, and kind of the only sane man around out of all these characters of this insane characters, and he had even more insane characters, I think. Which is another thing that distinguishes the two eras is also the writers, because Joel had a huge influence when he was on the show. Nelson was the head writer at that time, but no doubt you can see Joel's influence. And when Nelson took over, the writing changed a lot. And Nelson, of course, was the head writer when he was on the show. And when he got the Sci-Fi Channel era, there was almost like a changing narrative. The Sci-Fi Channel, it started off with the Planet of the Apes. Basically, they go to the Observer Planet, blow that up, travel around a bit, get sucked into a black hole, go to ancient Rome, go out of the black hole, travel around a little bit, wind up back on Earth. In the Joel one, he was just kind of always stuck up there, hovering around Earth, just talking to Dr. Forrester and TV's Frank, except for the first cable channel or cable season. So not a whole lot of changing narrative. I also think I like Nelson's kind of stuff when they were making fun of things. Like I remember watching the Starfighters episode, and they were throwing in a lot of jokes about the then new and up and coming internet. While certainly Joel kind of made fun of things that were just kind of going on socially, technologically, pop culture wise, I think Nelson they took it to a much higher level. Joel, I think they were making much more fun of the stuff that was actually kind of happening in the movie. Now, again, don't get me wrong, both of these guys did this, and I think Nelson did a little bit more. But again, I just kind of liked his more pointing out the silliness of what's going on around him, more than Joel's kind of rolling with the punches, lazy-eyed hippie character. Not that I hated him. In fact, I loved the Joel episodes as well. Oh my god. Manos the Hands of Fate. Need I say any more? That's pretty much it with this debate. I know there's going to be, I know Joel has a huge following, a well-deserved following, and I know there's going to be people on here, posting like, how dare you now choose Joel as your favorite? But I gotta go, and like I said, it might be purely nostalgic value, since that's where I started at a young age, watching Mystery Science Theater late at night. Well, that is all for now. Signing off.